I never saw it coming. The love of my life, my beautiful Brittany, turned out to be the greatest lie I've ever known. One moment, she was my everything, and the next, she became the darkest shadow over my soul. I caught her, not just in a lie, but in the arms of another man. Betrayal, like a knife, pierced through my heart. And as the truth unraveled, it wasn't just my marriage that ended. It was the man I used to be. Now there's only one thing left: revenge. And I will make sure they both pay. I met my wife Brittany while I was in community college. She was studying for her first 2 years of a management degree because it was cheaper than going to a full university for 4 years. After community college, she planned to finish her last 2 years at the nearby UNC campus. I was there to get an associate degree in business so I could help run my dad's electrical contracting business. I needed to learn enough about business to keep it going. My dad wanted to retire early, and his uncle had passed away without any kids. That meant my dad inherited everything from his uncle. While $2.5 million isn't a fortune, Dad dreamed of traveling in an RV full-time at 50 with my mom. He even offered my brother half of the business, but my brother turned it down. At that time, the business was not worth much. There was a man and a van who did local electrical work, so it didn't matter to anyone who didn't want to be an electrician. My brother worked as an iron worker on some of the big buildings in North and South Carolina. He was a large guy with a strong personality, but if you took your time, he also had a kind heart. He was my big brother, always playing pranks on me and teasing me in silly ways. He even stood up to a bully who was much bigger than me. The bully had knocked me down and was causing me trouble, but my brother stepped in and made him stop. As Brittany and I grew closer, we began to discuss getting married. We talked about a prenup. It wasn't anything too complicated or strange. Brittany and her family just wanted to keep her family trust out of it, which was a few $1,000,000. I understood her reasons. I was in love, and we weren't talking about crazy amounts of money here. In return, I wanted to leave out my business from the agreement. Those were the only two things in the prenup, and I was happy with that. Family money. I understand that our legacies are important and stay with us no matter what happens in life. Once, I worked as an electrician, and after passing my licensing exam, I took over my father's small electrical business in May 2012. I was 22 years old and had my license, along with something my father didn't know much about: how to use the internet. I set up our business on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I created a website and learned about search engine optimization so that we often appeared in the first few results when people searched online. Business grew quickly, and I found myself busy most of the time, sometimes even struggling to keep up. By the time I was 26 in 2016, I had 7 employees working with me. 3 of them were in the office: Margaret, my office manager; Hank, my shop foreman and parts manager; and Amanda, my personal assistant and bookkeeper. I have 4 electricians working with me: Ed, Javier, his brother Manuel, and Mike. We focus on home wiring and small business projects. We do really well with jobs that the big companies overlook and the smallest ones can't handle. I also run a side business from our warehouse where we sell and send out high-quality electrical parts made in the US, UK, or EU. They are not cheap, but they have some loyal customers. This adds over $2 million to our sales each year and helps balance things out when work is slow. I have a rule in my business: the boss doesn't take any money home until everyone else gets paid. This has only happened once, and it lasted 2 weeks. Someone found out I had taken nothing during that time. They hadn't received any money either, and soon everyone knew. Sometimes earning respect is crucial for a company's long-term success. I didn't tell anyone about my situation. My team has stayed together except for Herb, who retired at 67 last year. I picked him up at 66 years old, and you would have thought I had saved his dog from a fire. I chose to hire him even though he clearly said he only wanted to work until he turned 67. I had a lot of work to do and needed extra help. We agreed that he would retire after that without applying for unemployment. It turned out well for both of us, and I gained a friend. My first hire for my company was Margaret, who started part-time in August 2012. She wanted to work from 9 to 2 so she could be home for her kids until her youngest was in high school. At that time, I was running the business alone, but keeping everything organized was becoming challenging, so I went online and searched for help. That's when I found her ad. Local mom looking for 4 or 5 hours a day in an admin role. I'm a mom first. No nights and no weekends. While other employers might have overlooked her, I saw someone with values that matched my own. Family is more important than work. I saw an email address that looked fake on Gmail, but I sent her the job details anyway. The job wasn't too difficult, and since I was just starting my business, I didn't have much money to pay. 10 minutes later, I received a reply with a real email address. About 20 minutes after that, I was talking to her on the phone. I liked what I heard. She was kind, enthusiastic, and proudly talked about her kids and her husband. Those are good signs of a nice person. Around 4 o'clock, I suggested we meet at the food court in the mall for a simple interview. She mentioned she needed to pick up her kids first and then make dinner since her husband was away for work. I told her to bring her kids along and I would treat them to pizza. We went to a nice pizza place in the mall instead of the usual fast food. She was very thankful, and she started her new job the following Monday. We were a great fit. I could only pay $10 an hour, but she was happy to accept it, and I was glad she could work limited hours. I knew I had found someone great on her first day. When I returned after a meeting, I saw she had put up a whiteboard on the wall with my schedule for the week. I had hired her just to answer the phones and take notes, but she always gave her best effort. 6 months later, I hired Javier from a tech program at the local college. He was eager to work for little money to gain some experience, and that was all I could afford. After him, I hired his younger brother, Manuel, followed by Herb, then Ed and Mike. In 2014, Margaret started working full-time when her youngest child went to high school. She is a wonderful person who helps everyone out. We consider each other like family, and yes, her cookies are amazingly good. She makes treats for school fundraisers, and the office gets the leftovers. About a year after I hired Margaret, I hired Hank to help manage the shop and assist Margaret in sending the workers out to different jobs. Herb retired as planned, and I kept 7 employees as business settled into a nice routine that I could handle. It was one of those lucky moments. I was at a convention for electrical contractors in Atlanta, in a smaller section of the exhibition floor that people usually overlook for the bigger, flashier booths. I walked past some nice LED lights from a company called Stuart Windsor Lighting Ltd. We struck up a conversation. I've always enjoyed the different UK accents, so we chatted about things to do and see. He was from Plymouth. I mentioned the Atlanta Zoo and the aquarium, and he told me about the Southwest Coast Path in southwest England. He bought tickets online at that moment, and I became a bit obsessed with a beautiful 600-mile-long path along the coast of England. Stuart Windsor was looking for places to sell their products in the U.S., with one location in each region. My warehouse was just a standard building and a bit larger than needed, but we came to an agreement. I was officially in the southeast region, but could also sell online if I wanted to. It wasn't exclusive, but I had only 3 strong competitors for some quality UK-made electrical products, and we managed to do well with them. This was my first deal. Later, I made an agreement with a German company called Behr, Brun, Schultheiss to sell their products in the U.S. They made high-end electrical cabinets and boxes. I was one of 5 places they chose to work with. They ship their products to the U.S., I keep the items, and I only pay when I sell something. The prices are fixed, and I earn 15% of the sales, with most orders coming directly from online customers. This deal also helped me get really low shipping rates with UPS and Yellow Freight. I get along well with the Yellow Freight representative. He takes me out for nice steak lunches, and I send a lot of packages on his trucks. Amanda was my last hire in June 2016. She was 18 and came from a small town in eastern Kentucky. She moved to the Charlotte area with her longtime boyfriend and needed a job. In high school, she took some classes that taught her office skills, and she knew enough about Microsoft Office to handle basic tasks in Word and Excel. She thought she hit the jackpot when I offered her $10 an hour to be my personal assistant. Most of her work was answering emails, typing documents, and entering our sales data in Excel. She also ran errands to Walmart for office supplies if I asked. I covered her gas expenses and allowed her to fill up her car with the company credit card when she did these errands. I often check the gas gauge in her car. If I see it's low, I think of something we need from Walmart and send her to get it. I know this isn't the best gift, and she knows it too, but she happily accepts the free gas. She drives a Corolla, so it doesn't take much gas. Our first big problem happened when Javier got arrested for a serious crime in Washington Heights. I went to see him in jail. He insisted he was at home that night in Sheffield Park, but he was sleeping and didn't have anyone to back him up except his wife. I paid his bail and told him to get back to work, and he said, "Thank you," with a big smile. It took me 2 days and $3,000 on a private investigator, but I was able to show that the person who shot was shorter and much heavier. My investigator found a nearby business with a security camera facing the street. I got him a good lawyer, and he even received money from the city for being wrongly arrested. They didn't want a trial where Javier looked nothing like the real suspect. I know Javier has some connections that aren't very good, but I never thought of him as a bad person. After the charges against Javier were dropped, his family took me in like one of their own. His mother, Luz, always sends me food with Javier or his brother. She says I am like her third son. Her Spanish rice is amazing. In July 2017, we faced another big problem. Amanda's boyfriend, Travis, hurt her and gave her a black eye. On top of being mean, he made things worse by drinking too much and doing it in front of many people at his company's 4th of July party. Travis lost his job, and after a big fight about this, Amanda ended up without a home. I gave her the day off, and she found a surprisingly cheap and small apartment in Mooresville, which used to be a furniture factory. I had to help her with the deposit, but she was a smart young woman who had saved enough for the first 2 months' rent. It was $700 a month, and it was even on the Lake Norman side of the highway. There wasn't much of a view, but with a rent that low, it's hard to complain. It was a nice area, a good price, and having a roof over her head was important. I raised her pay to $12 an hour, and I offered her weekend work packing internet orders whenever she wanted. Running errands was a hassle, but she didn't mind since I covered the gas. I also paid for some of her courses at Mitchell Community College and gradually increased her pay as she learned more skills. By December 2017, I was paying her $18 an hour, and she felt very happy about it. Margaret's sister in Kentucky earned $7.25 working at Burger King. The last major problem happened when a drunk driver crashed into Margaret's husband's car in September 2017. He was hurt badly and had to stay in a medically induced coma for a week. Margaret wanted to be next to him the whole time, even though they would keep him in the coma for that long. To help her pass the time, I set up a laptop in the hospital room so she could work instead of using her sick days. She really appreciated having something to do while her husband was still unconscious. Plus, it meant she could save her sick time for a real emergency later. I would have let her take the sick time if she needed to, but honestly, Margaret was feeling very bored. She just wanted something to keep her mind busy while she stayed with her husband. Meanwhile, Brittany was also doing well in her own life. After graduating in May 2012 at the age of 22, Brittany started working as an office supervisor at DeBaugh & Associates, a law firm. I still remember the first time I met her boss. He was quite unpleasant. He reminded me a bit of Dan Fielding from the old TV show Night Court, but without any good traits. His name was William DeBaugh, one of the 3 main partners in the firm. He was good-looking, but thought he was more attractive than he really was. He made a lot of money from TV ads for personal injury cases, which gave him some charm with women even though he was in his late 50s. You could picture his ads. Were you hurt while doing something risky? Call us. That's how he earned millions. During Brittany's first year at the firm, we attended the company Christmas party at the end of 2012. At that event, William DeBaugh seemed to be paying way too much attention to a woman at the party. She was with him as if her husband didn't matter. Her husband looked very sad, sitting alone at the 4th table. I saw William's hand resting on her back. It was right there, guiding her as they moved from person to person. There was no way her husband didn't notice it, and he didn't do anything, even though others around him were smirking and laughing. I will never understand why some men accept such clear disrespect, but I guess some guys are okay with it. Still, he didn't seem happy at all. That night, nothing strange happened. William didn't talk to my wife more than a few times, and I was keeping an eye on him. I know when someone is up to no good, and William was good at it, but not very good at hiding it. I was pretty sure he didn't care about hiding it anyway, and the party wrapped up with us receiving some nice gift cards and no personal issues. Asterisk, asterisk. Monday, October 16th, 2017, asterisk, asterisk. Things began to change when Brittany started acting a bit distant. She got upset with me over little things. By November, our time together started to fade away. It happened gradually, so it took a while for me to really notice. When I did, I began to look closer into what was going on. I got home half an hour late because Brittany had asked me to stop at Harris Teeter for some red potatoes. I walked in and greeted my wife, who gave me a half-hearted hello and a quick kiss. "Hi, glad you're home," she said. I went to the bathroom and then came back to the kitchen to help her get dinner ready. She shot me a glare. "These potatoes are awful. Didn't you check them?" In my defense, the bag had only a small opening, and they didn't seem that bad to me. She picked up the worst potato and said, "Look at all this decay. You need to pay more attention." It really wasn't a big deal, so I said sorry and promised to do better next time. She didn't seem to feel much better that night. I decided to let it go. Everyone has a rough day now and then. Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. I was taking a shower that night when Brittany came in and started scolding me about my clothes on the floor. Honestly, I was focused on washing myself, and here was Brittany complaining about something small. I would have picked them up and put them in my dirty clothes pile in the closet after my shower, just like I always did. I had been doing that since we got married, and I take care of my own laundry. She does hers, and I do mine. I'm fine with that setup because I know how to use a washer. She prefers doing it herself because she thinks I never do it correctly. That was okay with me since she uses fabric softener and separates everything into different loads, while I keep it simple. I usually did 3 loads: lights, darks, and socks and underwear. The first 2 loads of laundry were washed with warm water. The last load was done with hot water and a bit of bleach, just to make sure my socks and underwear were clean. I just wanted my clothes to smell fresh. I felt a bit frustrated with her constant questions, and I asked, "What's going on? This is the second time you've been upset over little things. You know I always put my dirty clothes away after my shower." She argued back a bit, which was rare for her. "Just make sure to put them in the right spot next time." I sighed and said, "Okay, I understand." She replied, "Don't talk down to me, just do it." Great, just perfect. Thursday, November 16th, 2017, Brittany had been in a bad mood for a month, and I finally said, "What is going on? You've been angry over tiny things for too long. I don't get upset with you for the little stuff. What's happening?" Brittany snapped back, "Nothing's wrong. Are you saying I'm just being moody or something? How about you clean up after yourself and do things right from the start?" I pushed back because I was tired of being her punching bag. "I'm not doing anything wrong, and I never even brought up my mood swings. Why don't you like me anymore?" She looked down. It was such a small change, but it made my heart race. After a moment, she said, "I'm sorry. Work has just been really stressful." It was a small difference, but something felt off. I had no proof, but she looked guilty. After she left, I wasn't going to sit around, so I searched online for signs of cheating. Somehow, I ended up on a strange website with all sorts of odd stories about husbands coming home early and finding their wives with other men. I also learned about a term called cuck and found out they like wearing unusual items. Why did I just spend 2 hours reading stories about men in strange situations? I really need to stop myself from reading those things, and even more for finding them interesting. The stories were about things that would never happen, like going to a dance club and watching your wife leave with a famous athlete while you sat alone at the table. There was another one about a guy whose wife was unfaithful, but he was a former spy. He acted like he was on a mission and dealt with her and the other man in an over-the-top way. It was all so unrealistic. I couldn't help but roll my eyes, but I found the stories entertaining and ended up wanting to read more. After wasting 2 hours like that, I hit the back button and looked for reliable information on what to expect if Brittany was being unfaithful. I knew I had to be cautious. She worked for a powerful person who wasn't the best, and I needed to be prepared for anything. I spent a lot of time reading stories online and found myself drawn into them. I couldn't understand why I was so interested in a story about a man who watched his wife go out with someone else. There seemed to be many common ideas in these stories, like a husband coming home early or a wife going out for dinner with another guy. The ones where a man just sits and watches bothered me the most, but I still read them. I might not be the brightest, but I know some things. Thursday, November 23rd, 2017. Brittany's mood was much better than the previous week, but I sensed something was off. It could have been anything, yet my instincts were telling me something was up. It was also Thanksgiving, and we had dinner with my parents who had come from Sarasota to visit. Brittany was being very kind, maybe too kind. I was the only one who noticed it. It was such a small thing that only someone who had lived with his wife for years would pick up on it. The holiday was nice, and it was great to see my parents. My brother was there for dinner, too, so it turned out to be a good time, except for that nagging little thought. My mom spent a lot of the evening nudging my wife and me about having kids and hoped my brother would settle down and get married soon so she could have grandkids. Thursday, November 30th, 2017. I got a short text during lunch. It said, "Going out with my friends for a girls' night out. I'll be home before midnight." I didn't like how abrupt the message was, and I felt uneasy about the whole situation. My instincts were on high alert. The odd part was, she came home at 11:15 and was actually nice to me. She took a shower but came over to give me a kiss hello that felt warmer than it had in a while. She didn't seem to smell any different. Thursday, December 7th, 2017, I received a short text at lunch. "Girls' night out again tonight. Why don't you have dinner with your brother?" Once more, she got home at a good time and didn't hurry to clean up. Brittany came in, gave me a kiss, and chatted for a few moments before heading to the bathroom. She had her own unique scent. I went to wash my teeth and noticed her clothes on the floor. Everything seemed normal. Saturday, December 9th, 2017. The Christmas party was different this year. William DeBall wasn't leading a woman around like before, and this was the first time I noticed that. A few guests looked at me strangely, but there was nothing obvious going on. I thought it might be bad news, but again, nothing clearly wrong happened. Brittany was with me the whole time, and William DeBall hardly spoke to her at all. There were many silly games and raffles. We won a lot of gift cards worth over $4,000. We got more than any other couple who wasn't at the top level. This made me suspicious. The raffles and games felt unfair. $1,000 to Nordstrom? That seemed strange. I did win 2 $100 Home Depot gift cards by guessing how many jelly beans were in a jar, and a $100 gift card for Best Buy for throwing a football the farthest. Monday, January 15th, 2018. Brittany could be overly critical sometimes, but at other times she was very kind. I noticed that her girls' nights out really were just with her friends, and they never went to any clubs. I dressed up in a disguise, a Panthers hat, fake round glasses, and some fake blonde hair on top of my brown hair on a few occasions. Each time she was just hanging out with her friends. I even saw her say no to a guy. I stopped by her work a few times to surprise her for lunch. She was nice to me, even though she seemed less friendly at other times. Thursday, February 15th, 2018. I was in Gastonia, walking along Main Avenue when a man approached me. He said, "My wife works with your wife, but we really need her job. Please ignore me. Just read this note." He quickly walked away and turned into an alley. I didn't follow him. I almost crumpled the paper and threw it away, but something about his voice made me stop, especially since he mentioned my wife. The note was brief. "Your wife might get involved with William DeBall. Be careful, as William has many connections. You have about a week to get ready." I understood this matched what I had sensed, so I began to find ways to prepare myself for an approaching storm. Thursday, February 22nd, 2018. When I walked up to my truck, I found a folded piece of paper stuck in the door handle. It read, "Your wife will talk to you tomorrow about William. Be ready." I could have checked our security cameras, but I didn't want to upset someone who might be trying to help me. I guessed it was the same person as before. Someone's husband, and that someone had some inside information. Friday, February 23rd, 2018. I told Margaret I needed to leave early, and she seemed to read my mind and asked, "What happened to your dog?" I gave her a quick summary that my wife might be unfaithful with her boss, but I needed to talk to her to find out the truth. She looked upset and maybe a little sad when she nodded, and then I left. At exactly 4:30, I returned home and saw my wife sitting at the table in a beautiful blue dress. It had an elegant cut that showed off her neckline. In front of her, there were 2 glasses of expensive whiskey from my collection. I had assumed the 2 notes I received were true and was as ready as I could be. Divorce seemed to be the way forward. If she said she was going to be with someone else, our marriage would be over. It would hurt a lot, but I didn't want to force her to stay with me. I would tell her it was finished and let her choose her path because this is a home, not a cage. She was dressed up for a night out, and no one told me we were going out. That whiskey was very valuable, and I could guess what was coming next. I was as prepared as I could be. I really hated my life, but I wasn't going to let someone walk all over me. If that's what you like, fine, but don't try to convince me to join in. I know some people can explain their feelings while others can't. I'm in the can't explain group, and that's that. To me, marriage is a deal. We each give something to each other, and I felt like I lost mine. I was ready to take back what was mine. When it comes to marriage, you're either all in or all out, and I was definitely out. She looked at me and said, "Joshua, I love you." Yeah, I heard that before. It felt fake to me. I wasn't going to get angry. That just ends up with me in trouble. I mean, my life was turning into one of those stories you read online. I wondered how many cliches she would use before it was over. I had read too many of those stories, and I was just waiting for the hard truth to hit. I sighed and gave her a wry smile, saying, "Well, that's nice. I love you too." "What do you want to tell me?" My sarcasm was pretty noticeable. I tend to get sarcastic when I'm upset. She sighed. "I'm going out with my boss this weekend and we'll be home on Sunday. We can go over everything when I return." My stomach grumbled loudly. I rolled my eyes. Seriously? Now? I really needed to use the restroom. Brittany continued, "William is taking me to a hotel for the weekend and—" I knew I didn't have time. My stomach growled again, followed by a quiet but strong noise. Oh no, that was not good. I winced as I noticed Brittany catch a whiff. She tried to ignore it, but then looked at me as if I were a strange creature. I raised my hand to interrupt her and said, "Speaking of William, I really need to go. Please wait on the couch. We'll continue in a few minutes." I got up and went to the bathroom. I really needed to relieve myself. The smell was strong and quite unpleasant. I should really avoid eating Mexican food from a truck again, especially since there's a great restaurant, La Hacienda, right down the road. Anyway, I came back with my phone, ready to record everything for later. I know I should have thought of that earlier. Brittany said, "As I mentioned, we will discuss how things will be moving forward." I paused for a moment and realized there was no point in trying to dodge the issue. "So you're seeing someone else?" She shook her head and replied, "We've just had lunch together, but I'm going to be his personal assistant, and I'll travel with him 2 weekends each month, plus he has a work trip in the south of France for 6 weeks during the summer. This weekend will be our first time being close." A lawyer going on a working vacation in France? That's nonsense. Yeah, I know. It seemed pointless, so I said, "Then we will just get divorced. You take what's yours, and I'll take what's mine." Brittany replied, "No, that's not going to happen. I need a place to live, and William only wants me around sometimes." "What in the world, part-time? Let me make this clear. My soon-to-be ex-wife is not being treated fairly in this situation." I said calmly, "Yes, it will." Brittany responded, "William is a powerful lawyer. He can make things difficult for you, like planting evidence or influencing the judges he knows. He could even have you locked away for a long time, or worse. And if you tell his wife anything, he'll come after you legally, over and over again. In the unlikely event you manage to win, his friends will come after you." I thought about how this sounded like a story I had read online. It felt strange to see it happening in real life, something that shouldn't even be possible. Sadly, the person beside me was right. William was sitting in the front row for the governor's big event. He had a hand in running the governor's office, the mayor's office, and even the county leaders. What a drag. Ugh. So they were going with the idea of pressuring the unwilling partner. Really? I had read about stories like this, but they weren't supposed to come true. Enough already. I decided to be as sarcastic as possible and said, "No, this is not how it should be. You're not sticking to your plan." She looked confused and asked, "Plan?" I replied, "Yeah. I'm sure you practiced telling me about this weekend, right?" I had her second-guessing herself a bit. Yeah. I said, "Well, first, you forgot to mention that it's just for fun, and second, Billy isn't black." Brittany corrected me. "It's William, not Billy." "You've met him. No, he's not black." I pretended to think and said, "Well, your partner in this story was supposed to be black and really impressive. You got the part about threats right, but your partner is definitely supposed to be black." Brittany looked curious. No, William is white and a successful lawyer. She sighed and looked at me. Come on, you've met him and know what he looks like. I shook my head. No, he's definitely supposed to be black. I paused dramatically for effect and then pretended to be super excited. Wait! I paused again for a moment. Did he get a transplant? Maybe Billy had something impressive done. Yeah. Brittany rolled her eyes again and said, William does not have that. Stop being silly. I need to leave and this is holding me up. I shook my head and then asked, So, where is my special item? You were supposed to bring something to embarrass me even more. Brittany, trying to take control of the situation but also curious, asked, What do you mean by that? I looked at her, feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief, and said, It's something meant to keep me in line while you're off with Billy, and make sure you bring enough supplies because this whole thing is a mess. I continued with a sarcastic tone, and don't forget to make sure you're fresh from your time with him when you come home. I pretended to be excited. That should be quite the treat. Maybe we should save it and use it like mayonnaise for sandwiches. Brittany was getting angrier at my teasing. After taking a moment to collect her thoughts, she replied, William doesn't have a big, unusual body part, and I'm not interested in those kinds of things. I shook my head and said, See? You're going off the topic. Ugh! Brittany sighed, rolled her eyes, and asked, What now? I couldn't believe she hadn't just stood up and walked away yet. I was on a roll, so why not keep teasing her? Honestly, I was surprised she didn't walk away in frustration after my first joke. I asked, Is William a yogi? Not Yogi Bear with a picnic basket, but a yoga master. The script definitely needs a yogi, not the bear kind, the yoga kind. I thought for a moment and felt quite clever. Oh, and he can paint too, right? He has made a big painting of you, with you in a natural pose, right? He needs to be from Canada. Brittany shook her head and responded, No! I pressed my lips together and pretended to think. I said, Okay, let me get ready for the weekend and I'll join you. We can go over the script on the way to wherever we are headed. It needs to be across a wooden bridge so it can be part of a special scene, you know? Brittany sighed and said, I'm going to the Chester Valley Lodge and you're not invited. Got it. She just shared important information. I had to think quickly to keep her from noticing. No, I'm definitely meant to stay close and watch, even if it feels a bit odd. I want to see everything unfold. Brittany was getting annoyed. Stop with your nonsense. You're not coming. But I kept talking anyway. No, I'm supposed to be sitting tied to a chair in the corner while he's with you. He should be calling me names like loser and saying you need someone better. She just stared at me, so I kept talking. You have to make sure I'm tied up tight while Billy teases me. I might get really mad, so we need strong ropes. Billy looks a bit weak, and we can't have me getting loose because I wouldn't want to hurt him, and I definitely don't want to end up in trouble for that. I paused like I was thinking hard, then added, And you have to make sure you come back with something big to share. We need to add that twist to the story. Remember, you need to make me take care of someone else's kid. Brittany sighed and said, I'm not having a baby. Come on. I shook my head and replied, No, you should be making me take responsibility for William's child. You keep going off script. Brittany had finally had enough. She stood up and yelled, That's it! Then she walked toward our bedroom. I joked to her back, All right, if I'm not going, maybe I should go to his house and mow his lawn. She went upstairs just as I finished my joke about the lawn. I called up one last time. Wait, maybe I'm a secret agent and I need to get my helicopter from the backyard. I knew she probably didn't understand where most of my silly comments came from. She came down with her suitcase and an overnight bag. I realized this was the last time we would be together as husband and wife, and I felt a heaviness in my chest. Suddenly, I felt drained. I got up and walked to the kitchen. I didn't want to watch her leave. I had loved her deeply. I was fully committed to our marriage. But now, that commitment felt changed. I was feeling really down. I hoped they would just leave, but Billy rang the bell and my wife let him in. He strolled into the kitchen with a smirk on his face. I figured he wanted me to get upset, but I was smarter than that. He said, I'm taking her now. I'll bring her back on Sunday. I didn't say anything. What a petty guy. I didn't take the bait, and he looked disappointed before he left. It was exactly 5 o'clock, and as soon as she was out the door, I began my plan to tear down my marriage. They had just left when I called my brother for a big favor. He lived an hour away, and luckily he was closer to where my wife was going. I said, "Stephen, I need a huge favor. My wife is seeing her boss and they are going to Chester Valley Lodge." He didn't believe me at first. "Really?" he asked. I said, "Yes, please believe me. I just need the room number and some proof. Don't make any moves until I have everything sorted out. Her boss is a very wealthy and influential man. I can handle this, but only after I have everything in place, and I need the photos just in case she tries to twist the story on me. My brother can be a pain, but he's family." Once I convinced him this wasn't some sick joke, he said, "What an idiot. I'm the only one who gets to mess with you. I've got your back." I probably couldn't actually beat Billy. He's got ties to the governor, but I could at least buy some time. I had what I needed if he tried to blackmail me. It was 4:45 when I texted Margaret. "Can you find some divorce lawyers for me? I'm really worn out and just can't." It was 5:20 when the doorbell rang. I briefly wondered if Brittany had changed her mind, but then I shook it off. The marriage was over, even if it hadn't completely ended yet. She wasn't just being unfaithful. She was involved in a plan that could get me in serious trouble. I walked to the door and Margaret smiled at me, saying, "You shouldn't be by yourself." I gave a sad smile and replied, "She's the one to blame and now she's gone. I'm all alone." I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. Then Margaret began to cry and said, "I'm so sorry. One of the best choices I ever made was hiring Margaret. I realized she was not only my office manager, but also a good friend and supporter. I told her, first, this isn't your battle. Second, you shouldn't be here without your husband in another man's house. It doesn't look good." Margaret laughed a little through her tears and said, "Greg knows where I am and who I'm with. We're not worried about anything. You're family to us, and I really love my job, thanks to you." She reached into her large purse and pulled out a big bag of food from La Hacienda. Margaret's purse was bigger than any I had ever seen. I was pretty sure she parked her car in that spot. 2 more cars pulled up as Javier and Manuel got out and walked toward the house. Then 4 more cars arrived. Everyone from work had come to support me. I guess I wasn't as alone as I thought. Treat others well and they will treat you well in return. For me, that was a comforting thought. Some of them brought food. Javier and Manuel loved Arby's and brought 2 bags, and Mike brought some Chick-fil-A. It was a strange mix, but it made for a great meal, and surprisingly, I was very hungry. I enjoyed a La Hacienda soft taco, half an Arby's roast beef sandwich, a few Chick-fil-A grilled nuggets, and some waffle fries. We all gathered on my back patio to eat together. Javier quietly approached me and asked if I wanted some company for William. He had connections. I politely declined, knowing it would complicate things for me later. Still, I thanked him for the offer. He was a skilled electrician and was always ready to work weekends if needed. Amanda spent time with me, trying to cheer me up. We talked about hiking, and I learned that some old coal railroad lines in her hometown had been turned into nice trails. She loved hiking and was very passionate about it. Thankfully, she avoided mentioning my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I appreciated that. Manuel was still complaining that he knew people who could help. Just like his brother, I told him it would all come together, and I was grateful for his support. He looked me in the eye and said, "You are like a brother to me. The day you helped my brother and showed he was innocent, you became family." I smiled at that. It was the first smile I had since I received that note from the man. Eventually, everyone left except for Margaret. She stayed to help me clean the kitchen and take out the trash from dinner. At 8 that night, I got a call from my brother. I asked him, "Did you find out which room they were in?" He laughed and said, "No need. I sat in a chair facing away in the lobby, room 1005. It's a penthouse. The guy has money to burn, $1,500 a night. I have pictures and videos to show." I walked behind them with my camera attached to my belt. She was too focused on him to notice. I replied, "Thanks, bro," he said proudly. "I got to the lodge 10 minutes before them. I wore a cap and sunglasses so they didn't see me. Want me to confront him?" I could easily handle it. You could too. Honestly, even Margaret could. I said, "No. I need to focus on my own life and start fresh." The situation would only make things more complicated, and a jail sentence would complicate it even more. Her boss is a bad man, but he's not dumb and he has connections with the governor. My brother sounded upset. He trains at a mixed martial arts gym, and while he's not a champion, he knows enough to defend himself against anyone who doesn't know how to fight. Margaret announced clearly that she was staying over and wanted to know which spare bedroom she could use. I thought about arguing, but Margaret usually gets her way, and I didn't have the energy to oppose her. Later that night, after Margaret went to bed in the spare room, I took out my phone. My hands were a bit shaky as I hoped it had recorded my wife's confession about trying to set someone up. I found the recording and listened to it. It was there. I saved it on my Apple Cloud, created a Google Drive account, and sent a copy to my brother. I'm not really sure how to start this. That night, I ordered 4 pizzas for Billy's room, and I made sure to pay when they arrived. Yes, I might be acting a little childish right now. I was frustrated. I felt a mix of pain and some small hope. My office manager was resting in the other room, and her husband didn't seem to mind. Everyone knew I wasn't going to ruin their marriage, and they were all there for me as I faced my problems. They didn't leave me alone, which I appreciated. Saturday, February 24th, 2018. I woke up to the smell of bacon cooking. It was 6:30 in the morning. The door opened at 7 and Margaret came in without knocking. I was caught off guard since I usually sleep without wearing much. Margaret walked in and said, "Sit up." I carefully sat up, making sure I was decent. Margaret brought in a lovely breakfast tray. She smiled and asked, what are you wearing?" I shot her a quick glare, but it wasn't mean. "Never mind. I was eating when Margaret left for a moment. She came back with a huge purse and pulled out a big tablet. Honestly, it seemed like she could fit a whole car in there, not to mention a kitchen sink." She didn't seem to notice my awkwardness as I sat there under the covers, feeling exposed, while she pulled up a chair and started talking. "Okay, Javier has an opening in his schedule on Monday after lunch, so he will handle Barnstable baths for you. After that, you'll meet with Tanisha Grace from Grace Law. She took on Mr. DeBau's cousin in divorce court last year. She's charging $400 an hour, but she has a good reputation for dealing with that family." She went on Tuesday, I moved Manuel to take your place to finish Barnstable. You need to be there at 4 in the afternoon to make sure everyone is happy and to chat a bit. Mr. Barnstable understands and is okay with you not handling his work this time." I asked, "Does he know what happened?" Margaret nodded and replied, "He only knows that there are some problems with your wife, and that's why you are not available. He said he understands and hopes you are doing okay. He also mentioned that you will get his new Gastonia East store as long as the rates stay the same. I took care of everything for you and signed the papers this morning." I asked, "This all happened this morning? It's Saturday." Margaret nodded and said, "Mr. Barnstable wakes up early on Saturdays." I called him and explained, "He is completely on your side." I sighed and looked down. Life is tough. Margaret gently lifted my chin to meet her gaze. "He still remembers when you worked all night fixing the wires because his first electrician let him down right before the big opening of his new store downtown in Charlotte. You have friends and supporters, maybe not the governor, but lots of people are on your team. Everyone in your company appreciates you for their jobs, and we all care about what we do. You have more friends than you realize, Joshua." Then, Margaret left. I arranged for an Elvis impersonator to sing to them at lunchtime, performing Hound Dog. Yeah, I know, I spent a lot of money on that, about $450. I find my own ideas amusing. The impersonator cost $300, and I paid an extra $150 for someone to film it. I called my brother to check if he had any news, but he didn't. I thought the Elvis idea was funny, and my brother agreed, saying it was very creative. As I was finishing the call, he added, "Funny thing. I heard a rumor that someone spilled something on the backseat carpet of Billy's car last night. I bet that will smell pretty bad in a few days." Yeah, my brother is quite the character and knows how to get into cars without setting off the alarm. I didn't ask for details, though. Hank came over at 6 and said we were going to a place called Mr. Jugs. It was a bar where they served drinks, but only topless entertainment was allowed. I'm not a fan of that sort of thing, so the experience wasn't very enjoyable for me. I mostly remember the Uber ride home. Hank said I didn't handle my drinks well. He was right. I'm not much of a drinker. Still, he can be a pain sometimes. Sunday, February 25th, 2018. Hank had spent the night in the spare room and got up at 8, just like I did. I was getting ready for the day when he walked by my door without knocking and said he had to leave. Does anyone in my house ever knock? He walked right into my room while I was waking up, looked at me and said, "See you later," and then walked out. "Amanda will take care of you in 15 minutes. Yep, he's really not nice. I got dressed, then Amanda showed up. Wow, she looked great. She was about 5 feet tall with a friendly smile that could brighten anyone's day. Her blonde hair fell to her shoulders, and she wore jeans and a cozy white top under a long sweater, perfect for a cool day. With her big smile, she said, "Come on, we're getting you out of this bad mood. Let's go." I paused for a moment and she sighed, then insisted, "Let's go, mister." I grabbed my hoodie and stepped outside. At 10 o'clock, she stopped at McDonald's and said we were having breakfast. It was funny. My worker was telling me what to do. I decided to go along with it. I told her I would pay, and she laughed, saying, "Yes, you are." She held up Margaret's company credit card, and I realized this was a plan, but I just went with it. I won't complain about pancakes and sausage because they are always a good choice. Then she took me to a walking trail in Gastonia, and we walked for 5 miles before turning back. She kept the mood light and avoided the difficult topics until the end when she said, "Everyone at J. Calvert Electric cares about you. You really make our lives better and treat us like family." She kissed my cheek when she dropped me off at home around 3 o'clock. I ordered pizza from Papa John's, called it a night, and spent some time in my office making sure everything was in order. I wanted to make sure my internet history didn't give any hints to any snoopers that Billy Douchebag might hire. Brittany showed up with Billy Douchebag at 7 that evening. I had expected them at 9 like they mentioned, but they probably wanted to surprise me. Brittany walked in and repeated the same annoying things she said on Friday, telling me to just handle it. Billy Douchebag stood next to her with a big grin, trying to provoke me into reacting badly. "See," he said, "I brought her back after. Well, you understand." I tried to ignore Billy, but Brittany had some familiar words to say about my feelings as a man. She seemed to have used a lot of common phrases. Well done, I guess. I told her we were getting a divorce, and she made her usual threats again. I played the recording of her threats. She complained about me filming her. "Seriously? You threatened to get me into serious trouble, and you're upset about being recorded?" Billy also talked about recording people. I reminded him that in our state, only one person needs to agree to record. I told him he would never find all the copies of that recording and that others knew what was going on just in case something happened. Billy became less confident, and I made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with him or his girlfriend. I had moved her things to the spare bedroom. I was hoping that the bed still had some old germs on it. In fact, I was wishing it had been used without care. I know, it feels impossible. But still, she didn't notice anything unusual about the bed. "I get that you all want me to go all out on this. He partly owns the governor, and I'm not getting into that unless I have no choice, and I felt like I had more space now. People in his group can get their own legal favors, but I don't have that option." Part 2. The end of one chapter or the start of another. Monday, February 26, 2018, I met with my lawyer today. She seemed pretty serious until I mentioned I had a recording of Brittany making threats. She told me that the threats could be important, but wouldn't mean much unless they were acted upon. It was good to have in case Billy tried something, but it wouldn't lead to much since Brittany could claim it was just for show. Brittany came home at her usual time that evening. She looked quite upset and said, "I spoke with my lawyer. He mentioned that William thinks it would be best to handle this quietly with a no-fault divorce. I was really hoping that William was representing her. That would have been against the law, and I would have loved to confront him about it. No chance." Brittany said, "William wants all the audio copies destroyed." That made me laugh, and I shook my head. "That will happen when pigs fly." She sighed. "Well, he wants everything to go smoothly and wants to know what guarantee he has to keep things from getting complicated." Complicated? Seriously, I was frustrated. I've been through so much already going to divorce court after she spent a weekend having fun with someone else at a fancy resort. I didn't share all that and just said, "I have no plan to get involved in his problems as long as he and you stay out of mine. I know he is friends with the governor, mayor, and who knows who else, and I want no part of the trouble he can cause. Just leave me alone." She had the nerve to ask, "Is that all?" I had to admit she was bold. I gave her a disappointed look and replied, "Unlike you and Billy, my word matters." She sighed loudly and went to the spare room. I heard her talking on the phone as I walked into my office, but I didn't listen in. I suddenly felt tired. I decided to watch some travel videos on the Southwest Coast Path on YouTube. It was a long hike along the beautiful coast of the west of England, over 600 miles. I had wanted to share that with Brittany, but she doesn't like hiking. Maybe someday. The rest of the night was peaceful. I went into my room, which felt like our room. I looked around sadly as everything in my life seemed to crumble. Then I fell into a deep sleep. Tuesday, February 27th, 2018. I was at work when I got a call from Margaret about some papers that had come in. They were a divorce petition. It was straightforward and simple. No blame, 50/50th division, and no support for either spouse. I kept the house, and she kept her larger retirement fund. The agreement was followed, so I kept J. Calvert Electric, and she kept her trust fund. I know everyone wants me to get in my attack helicopter and strike back at Billy, but I don't have an attack helicopter, and all of this was driving me crazy. In the end, I wanted to stay calm, so I agreed to let things go. I kept some important papers hidden away just in case I ever needed them. I had dinner with Margaret, Ed, and Amanda. We went to La Hacienda again. The food was good, and we kept the conversation light and fun. Thursday, March 1st, 2018. Hank took me back to see Mr. Jugs again. I still don't like fake appearances. I prefer natural looks. I'd rather see a nice natural shape than something that looks artificial. This time I didn't drink, and I drove myself home. Friday, March 2nd, 2018, Margaret said she and Amanda were taking me to a dance club, but Margaret had to cancel at the last minute. I danced with Amanda during a few slow songs. When it came to the fast songs, I didn't have the best moves. Amanda found it funny, but she appreciated my effort. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and said, "Your work family cares about you, Joshua. Things will get better. We all promise." Saturday, March 3rd, 2018. I woke up early for moving day. Billy had quickly hired movers for Brittany. She didn't stay at our place, so I guess she spent the night with him. I was feeling a bit lost, but the pain in my head was less intense now. Manuel came over early, wanting to help me out and make sure I was okay. When the 4 movers arrived, 2 were quite large, followed by Hank, Javier, Manuel, and even Margaret. You know, Margaret likes to keep a lot of things in her car, right? Do you know what else she has in her bag? A gun, which she made sure to show me in front of the 2 big guys. Then she told me how she tried out 43 different guns to find the one that felt right for her. She confidently said she could hit the target perfectly every time and mentioned that she and her husband practice with it at least once a month. When one of the big guys joked about being good with a gun and made a Clint Eastwood reference, Margaret quickly reminded him that a gun is a serious tool, not something to fool around with. He smiled weakly, but Margaret didn't laugh back, so he backed off. About 10 minutes later, her husband came in and sat down next to her. I couldn't tell if he had a gun with him, but he wasn't smiling either. Out of the 4 movers, 2 of them were so large that they reminded me of huge, muscular bears. They were massive. After Margaret explained the situation, Manuel just hinted that he knew some people who could solve problems, even when they seemed impossible. It was 3 o'clock that afternoon when Brittany checked the house one last time. I was a bit short with her, but told her that if anything from the list wasn't on the truck, I would take it to her office and leave it with the receptionist. If anything was still in the house, it was small and could be left at the front desk. Once the movers had left and the truck drove away, Margaret smiled at her husband, and her mood brightened. The day ended with Brittany taking only what she was supposed to. We enjoyed a late lunch or early dinner at La Hacienda at 3:30. By the way, their steak ranchero is fantastic. Saturday, March 10th, 2018. Margaret said that she and Amanda were taking me to another dance club. I was starting to wonder if I was really the boss, since it felt like everyone else in the company was telling me what to do after work. This time, Amanda couldn't come. Instead, one of Margaret's friends named Sandy joined us. She was quite nice-looking, especially with her warm smile and playful personality. She was around 35 years old, while Margaret was 40. I don't recall much from late that night, except that I spent time with Sandy 2 times on Saturday and once on Sunday morning. I realized later that it was all planned, but hey, it was better than dealing with Mr. Hand. Friday, March 16th, 2018. I had an interesting weekend and spent a lot of time with Sandy, who seemed very excited to be with me. On Sunday morning, she pretty much said that her goal was to have a great time with me, but that was all. As she got dressed for the last time that Sunday morning, she looked at me and said, "Joshua, I hope you enjoyed our time together. I want you to know that you're a great guy and can be a wonderful partner. I usually go for the risky types, which is not you. Keep hope. Someday you'll be a great boyfriend for someone, just not me." I nodded and she laughed. Even though I can be easygoing, I've never been unfaithful to any man in my life. Not all women cheat. In fact, most women are very loyal. Very few would betray someone like your soon-to-be ex-wife did. When you find the right woman, let her love you because you seem like a wonderful person for the right partner. I am just not the person for you. I sighed and nodded. Sandy gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek. She said, "If you stay alone for the rest of your life, your ex-wife wins. She is moving on, and you need to do the same." After that, I never saw her again. She really helped boost my confidence. Friday, March 23rd, 2018, Amanda said we were going dancing again. She playfully said she enjoyed my silly dance moves. I stayed sober the whole night and took her home at midnight. For the first time, I really enjoyed myself and didn't worry about how my dancing looked. We made plans to hike the Kings Mountain Circular Trail on Saturday. The trail was a lot of fun, and hiking 10 miles was both enjoyable and helped me stay healthy. Friday, March 30th, 2018. Hank, Ed, Javier, and Manuel took me to a local bar. I've never liked the way some people change their looks, so I spent more time watching the Premier League soccer game on the big screen instead of paying attention to what was happening around me. You know what? I don't really care about Premier League soccer, but it was more interesting than what was happening in front of me. Still, I tried to enjoy it. Saturday, March 31st, 2018, Amanda called to see what we should do. I have to say, she and Margaret are great company, and I honestly enjoy spending time with them more than with the others, especially Hank. I appreciate women's bodies, but the way some of the women at the places Hank brings me to look just doesn't appeal to me. I prefer a natural look over what I see there. It was going to be a warm and beautiful day, perfect for spending time outside. She wanted me to suggest something fun, so I thought we could visit Fleet Park and take a walk on the trails. Late March was giving us lovely weather, with bright sunshine and temperatures reaching close to 80 degrees. She looked great in her red sports shorts and a top that was a mix between a crop top and a sports bra. It was a little unusual, but it was hard not to notice her outfit. I kept my thoughts to myself and tried to stay relaxed. When we arrived at the park, there was a radio station, FM 104.9, setting up in the parking lot. Warren Weasel and Mike Tubbs of Lard were getting ready to start a live broadcast. They had a cameraman filming them. Mike looked at Amanda and said, "Hi there. How would you like to earn $1,049 for yourself and $1,049 for the Wilhelmina Wilkins Breast Cancer Fund?" Amanda raised an eyebrow and asked, "What's the catch?" Both men smiled and replied, "You have to play soccer. You'll be playing against Mike Tubbs and our intern, Fat Freddy. Mike and Fat Freddy each weighed over 400 pounds. Amanda sighed and repeated, "What's the catch?" Warren Weasel explained, "Well, we go live in just 40 seconds after this song finishes." Mike then started the show saying, "Welcome, listeners. We are at Fleet Park to play soccer. We have..." He handed the microphone to Amanda, who introduced herself first. Then it was my turn, and I said, "Joshua. We're set to play soccer against Mike Tubbs and Fat Freddy. For every goal they score, they get $50 up to a total of $1,049, and the same amount will go to the Wilhelmina Wilkins Breast Cancer Fund. We start at the center of the field, and they have 15 minutes to score as many goals as possible. Fat Freddy will be the goalie, and whenever he stops the ball, they have to go back to the center. Fat Freddy is really big." They played a clip of a crowd shouting, "How big is he?" His size blocks the goal just by him being there. Warren spoke up. "So, Amanda, you and your boss tell us a bit about yourselves." Amanda replied, "He is not my boyfriend. He is my boss, and he's also my friend. He is the best." Warren and Mike exchanged looks. Mike asked, "Really? Your boss is also your friend?" Amanda nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, he is the best boss, and everyone at work thinks so too. He feels like family to all of us." Mike replied, That's unusual for an employee to say." Amanda explained, "Well, I don't mind Mondays. I really enjoy my job. He has paid for many classes for me at Mitchell Community College and has given me a raise for every class I completed. He has supported all of us in ways that feel like family." Warren looked serious and encouraged her. "Let's hear more." Amanda continued, I moved to Charlotte from a small town in eastern Kentucky with my ex-boyfriend. He got drunk at a work event and acted badly towards me in front of his boss. He lost his job and then he got angry with me for what happened and kicked me out. Joshua. She looked at me with warmth. Joshua lent me the money for my security deposit on a place of my own. No interest, just $50 a week to pay him back. Since he gave me an extra $1 an hour raise, I hardly owed him anything. Joshua is a true leader, not just a boss. He is also a friend. Mike nodded. That is really cool. Great bosses should be able to advertise on the radio for free. Amanda, where do you work? Amanda replied proudly, J. Calvert Electric. Warren said, so listeners, if you need electrical work, call J. Calvert Electric for all your needs. Amanda added, just call on Monday. We have weekends off except for one person who is on call. Mike remarked, being on call doesn't sound like much fun. Amanda explained, the person on call earns extra pay and has a minimum of 4 hours, even if no one calls. Mike said, I see. You've changed my mind. Warren tipped his hat, saying, I admire you for that. His hat read, Bikini Inspector. Yes, I rolled my eyes. Amanda said, remember the time he helped a co-worker who was wrongfully accused of a serious crime? He even paid for a private investigator to show that the co-worker was innocent. Mike turned to Warren and said, wow. Amanda continued, then there was the time our office manager's husband got into an accident with a drunk driver. Joshua bought a computer so she could work from the hospital and not lose her sick days or vacation days. Mike asked, is there more about our ultimate hero? Amanda replied, well, he hired a 66-year-old man who only wanted to work for a short time. Instead of putting him in a tough retail job, Joshua found him a good role that suited him. Warren let out a sigh and said, all right, we understand. Joshua is a great guy. Now, about the game, it's soccer. You have 15 minutes to score as many goals as you can within 10 minutes, and of course, we'll be recording it. We'll start at the middle of the field while we try to stop you from scoring. It will be Mike Tubbs and Fat Freddy. Amanda said, they probably can't play very well because, well... Warren finished her thought simply, because they are both very big. Amanda replied, well, I didn't say that. Warren chuckled, yes, I did. The idea is that you have a chance to score enough goals at $50 each to help the charity and to earn some money for yourself. Amanda sighed and said, I know there has to be a trick. Mike, Warren, and Freddie all smiled and said, of course. I promise we won't hurt you in any way. Amanda let out a sigh and replied, okay. I interrupted, wait! Warren clicked his tongue at me. Now, Joshua Calvert from J. Calvert Electric, you wouldn't want to stop a charity from raising money, would you? I sighed again. You guys are really something. They both grinned and said, absolutely. Warren then said with a smirk, get ready for a big twist. I groaned. Amanda seemed to enjoy their antics. I was not a fan. I just knew it would lead to something embarrassing for her. They had a history of making things awkward. Warren continued, just to be clear on who is on which team, we are playing shirts versus skins. Mike and Freddie will wear shirts. Joshua and Amanda will be skins. Amanda found it amusing. I definitely did not. I said, this isn't fair to Amanda. She might get in trouble. Amanda laughed. Joshua, just relax. When I was 18, I did the New Orleans bead thing with my ex. Amanda asked, so basically I play without my top for $50 a goal? Warren and Mike nodded. Don't worry about getting into trouble. We've got that covered. Amanda lifted her shirt, revealing more than I was comfortable with. I quickly looked away while Mike, Warren, and Freddie stared. Warren scolded me. Joshua, stop being so uptight. I replied, this isn't something I should be looking at. Mike laughed. Well, Joshua, I need you to describe it for our radio listeners. If you don't, the deal is off and Amanda is already live on our webcast. Amanda chuckled. Joshua, I'm not shy. Go ahead and describe what you see. I hesitated and then said, she looks like a B cup. Mike pressed on. And what about the details? Tell us more details. I said, her areolas are about the size of a quarter and round. Her figure is very, attractive. Amanda laughed. Joshua, just relax. I'm fine with this. Amanda took her shirt off and walked to the center of the field. Fat Freddy went to the goal while Mike stayed with me. I found out Amanda had played soccer when she was younger, just like I had. We weren't amazing, but we knew the basics. We moved the ball down the field. It was easy to avoid Mike, but Fat Freddy quickly stopped Amanda's first shot. It was difficult to focus. Amanda looked great. We returned to the center of the field. We only needed to reach the center to start again. Mike didn't even try to catch up this time. On her second attempt, Amanda scored in the right corner of the goal. It took us 14 minutes and 40 seconds to reach the 21st and final goal. We had reached our limit. We walked back and Amanda picked up her shirt. Mike said, "Not so fast." Mike continued, "We need to talk to her." Amanda laughed. "I bet you do." Warren added, "Of course you really do." Mike said, "So if we take $1,049 and divide it by 2, each person gets $524.50. I said, "Just give it to Amanda. She was the one who entertained you." Amanda looked surprised. "Really?" I nodded. "Yes, I was just a small part of it. The whole video is about you." Amanda jumped up and gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek. Wow, it was a challenge to keep little Joshua from getting too excited. Amanda is really cute and fun to be around. Monday, April 2nd, 2018. The phone calls from our day at the park started early. I had 5 estimates to complete, so I asked Hank to help with 2 more. Margaret and Amanda were speaking softly to each other, but stopped when I entered the room. I looked at them both and said, "What are you 2 up to?" Margaret replied, "We are discussing some women's topics." "Would you like to discuss women's topics? Maybe you can share your thoughts on our cycles and other interesting things." I felt uncomfortable and replied, "I think I'll skip that." Margaret teased, "Oh, come on, Joshua. We could really use your thoughts on our monthly cycles." I felt uneasy again and said firmly, "Never mind." Friday, April 27th, 2018. By the end of April, I was feeling better. The shock had faded, and Brittany had moved into her own place. I think it bothered her that she had to find her own home. I had no idea why she thought I would want to share my space with her. After finishing another estimate, I walked into my office. A large white envelope from my lawyer was sitting on my desk. Inside, the first page was a receipt for all the services provided. The next pages were the official papers showing my divorce had been finalized. 10 minutes later, it was 4 o'clock and time to go home. Margaret walked in and said, "Let's go." I replied, "Go where?" Margaret smiled and said, "I know what that envelope is. Your divorce is done. Your work friends are taking you out for steak dinner tonight, and then we're going out for drinks." I said, "I don't usually drink much." Margaret laughed and said, "You will tonight. Your truck can stay here overnight. We have drivers to take us home." We headed to the Outback Steakhouse in Cornelius, and I followed Margaret inside. She mentioned J. Calvert Electric. Instead of leading me to a table, she took me to a private room. There were 25 people in there. Margaret said, "You might wonder why we all stood by you during tough times. This is why. Look at everyone here. These are your employees, their partners, and their kids. We all have our lives because of you, Joshua. I don't think you see how important you are to us. We are your family, and tonight we celebrate the end of a tough time and the start of something new for you." I was feeling overwhelmed but managed to say, "Wow, I don't know what to say. Thank you." Javier cheered. "Great job, boss." Manuel shouted, "My brother." Dinner was nice. They all chipped in for my steak. Of course, I would remember to add this expense to the gift cards I handed out at the Christmas party. Everyone knew I would. After dinner, we headed to the bar. I might have had a bit too much to drink, but Margaret really outdid me. Wow, she had some interesting stories. She was definitely different when she had a few drinks. She was a devoted mom now, but she shared that she had quite the adventurous side when she was younger. She even mentioned being in a video from the 1990s, walking around in a unique way at a special festival with her then-fiancé, who is her husband now. Mental note, look that up quietly on the internet. The best part of the night was when Margaret, Amanda, and Javier's wife, Maria, sang "Pour Your Sugar on Me." It was the first time I saw Margaret a bit tipsy. I had noticed Amanda before, and she still looked great. Margaret, being around 40, had a nice figure too, definitely noticeable. At the end of the night, she seemed carefree and walked out without her shirt, letting her husband drive her car, which I jokingly thought she must have put in her big purse. Manuel's wife, Anna, gave me, Manuel, and Hank a ride home. Saturday, April 28th, 2018. I woke up on the bed still in my clothes. I had a bit to drink, but not too much, so my hangover was just a light headache. I went back to Kings Mountain with Margaret and Amanda. I had a great time showing Margaret the trail that Amanda and I had walked before. I was surprised that both women talked so openly about what had happened the night before. Margaret even joked, "I have a nice figure." They both stayed covered all day, which was fine with me because I wanted to keep a good relationship with Margaret's husband. Monday, April 30th, 2018. Margaret sighed and said, you have a lot of pictures of me from, well, everyone at the company or their spouses. It seems my coworkers know how to use their phone cameras. Look, they aren't going anywhere and you can keep them, but please, don't share them with others." "Please," I chuckled and replied, "I promise." Margaret smiled and joked with me, saying, "My husband told me to tell you that he knows you're a bit jealous of him because he gets to hang out with them." She found it amusing. I felt unsure because any comment could lead to trouble. ***, Friday, May 11th, 2018, ***. Hank let me know we were going back to Mr. Jugg's for amateur night. Amanda had won something and needed me to help. After I finished working on the signs for a new carpet store in Cornelius, I met Amanda. "Hey, Joshua, I have a fun surprise. I won a couples contest and I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend so I can get this massage prize I won." I stared at her, confused. "What?" Amanda sighed. "I won a couples massage and you're the only single guy I know who could pretend to be my boyfriend. Hank is too old and Javier and Manuel are married." I said, "I'm your boss and I'm not sure that's a good idea." Amanda looked upset. "Ugh, I want the massage and you've seen me in a swimsuit before. It doesn't bother me. I just don't care." I sighed, trying to think of an escape. Finally, Amanda said, "Please don't make me beg for this massage. I really want it." She looked at me with big, hopeful eyes. Then she pouted cutely, "Pretty please." I sighed again. "Okay, fine." She jumped up happily. "Yay! 4 hours of being treated to a massage. You'll enjoy it too, you know. You need to relax sometimes." Saturday, May 12th, 2018, I picked Amanda up from her house, and we drove to 2P's in a pod spa in Huntersville, where I parked. We went inside, and Amanda said her name, mentioning that we had a 1 p.m. appointment. She introduced me as Joshua, my boyfriend. That was so awkward. I'm supposed to be her boss, but she has become one of my closest friends. The woman at the front desk smiled at us and pointed to a door. "There are 2 robes in the room behind you. Please change and then go out the other door wearing the robes to meet your massage therapists." "Wait, Amanda and I are going to change together?" I started to ask, but what Ow! Amanda gently kicked my ankle and smiled at the receptionist again. She pulled me toward the door and I just let her do it. She said playfully, "Come on, it's not a big deal. You've seen me in other situations, so what's the fuss? It's just our bodies. I used to do art modeling at the county college when I turned 18. It was a good way to make money. You learn so much about people. Wow." I took off my shirt and set it down. I was facing away, and there were mirrors everywhere with nowhere to look away. Amanda started to take off her clothes, and I tried to figure out how to cover up. Then she turned to me, and I couldn't help but notice how she looked. She had a lovely figure with soft features that were hard to ignore. Amanda rolled her eyes and said, "Come on, just take it off. It's just a body." She put on her robe but left it open. It was clear she wasn't shy at all. I pulled down my shorts and felt her chuckle. A little tip. When you see someone in a vulnerable moment, it's best not to laugh. I let out a sigh. "Thanks for that." Amanda laughed again and said, "Oh, wow, don't be so serious. Your body is nice." I sighed again. She added, "Just relax. You look normal." I was laughing because it felt a bit awkward to see. Honestly, why do men worry about things that most women don't even think about unless the guy is acting strangely? I put on my robe and tied it closed. Amanda didn't seem to care and left hers open as we entered a room. There, I met a tall woman named Annika, while Amanda met a man named Jens, who looked like a statue. Amanda dropped her robe and lay down on the table. I took off my robe and lay down too. Thankfully, I managed to keep my nerves in check. Annika placed a towel over me, but Amanda waved Jens away, saying, "He's a bit shy, I don't mind." Annika seemed a little intimidating at first, but I was pleasantly surprised by how good it felt when she worked on my back. After about 15 minutes, she took my towel and explained that my back had a lot of muscles. When it was time to turn over, both Annika and Jens kindly covered us with towels. I thought Amanda was teasing me because her towel kept falling down. She looked great, and I had to focus hard to keep calm. The massage therapists took care of everything but the private areas. There's such a thing as a chest massage, and I found it hard not to notice how nice Amanda looked. When the massage was over, we stood up. I reached for my robe, but Amanda said, "Come on, stop being so shy." I'd never had my nails done before. They didn't put fake nails on me. They just smoothed mine out while Amanda had some sparkly tips added and her toenails painted bright red. I felt a bit awkward sitting next to her, especially since she didn't care at all that she wasn't dressed. The head massage was very nice, and then I had another massage. Finally, we ended up in a hot tub together, just chatting and enjoying the moment. Thank goodness the water was warm, as little Joshua looked around now and then while Amanda floated nearby. I felt like Amanda was playfully teasing me through the entire time we spent together. We had dinner at Dennaro's Pizza and then went our separate ways. Even with her playful nature, I really believed Amanda was becoming my closest friend. It was challenging, but I made sure to treat her well and be a good friend. Saturday, June 16, 2018. Javier and Manuel's mom won 20 tickets to Tsunami's water park and invited me along with everyone else. I was supposed to meet everyone at the park, where Margaret would pick up Amanda to save her the $8 parking fee. Manuel and his wife came with Javier and his wife. At the last moment, Margaret had to leave, so I packed Amanda's swimsuit and towel in my bag, and Hank would give Amanda a ride instead. No, I don't know why Margaret had Amanda's swimsuit. My phone was on the bench while I changed into my trunks. It buzzed with a text from Amanda. "You have my swimsuit. Meet me at the door to the women's locker room." I grabbed Amanda's things and walked to the door. Amanda peeked out, saw no one, and quickly came out to take her suit and towel. She smiled and said, "You've already seen me, silly," then went back inside to get dressed. Amanda was being playful, and I knew it wasn't quite right, but I had to keep my thoughts in check. The day was actually really fun, and I spent most of it with Amanda. I also made sure to share some time with everyone else and treated them to burgers and drinks at the stand. $8 for a bad burger, and they knew they had no choice. Friday, July 27th, 2018. When I arrived at work after a meeting, I found Amanda talking to Margaret, Amanda, and Hank. As soon as I walked in, Amanda jumped a bit, and they all turned to look at me. Their chat stopped right away, and then Margaret said, "And that's what I'm doing with my family this weekend." It sounded really odd, and I couldn't help but ask, "Okay, what were you really talking about, and why did you stop?" Margaret replied, "It's a private matter for Amanda." I almost wondered why Hank was in on this talk. I could picture Margaret and Amanda discussing women's stuff, but having Hank there felt strange. I decided to let it go. Part 3. Pushing for Answers. Thursday, August 2nd, 2018. I got a call from Margaret at midnight just as I was about to fall asleep. Margaret is the only person in the company who has my personal phone number that I keep available after 10 at night and before 6 in the morning. "Joshua, Amanda's apartment building is on fire. I can't leave because I'm taking care of my sick mom, and my husband doesn't know Amanda very well. Amanda trusts you. Can you go over there and help her?" It wasn't really a question. Amanda was very valuable to our team. I was out the door in 5 minutes wearing Crocs, a t-shirt, and sports shorts. I made a mental note to wear proper clothing next time. The shorts felt a bit odd without other layers. When I arrived, the fire was still going strong. The building was old and made of wood, stretching 2 blocks long and 3 stories tall. The fire began on the first floor of a middle apartment and spread to both ends. The building was very old and dry. The ends were burning brightly but were burning out. The middle part of the building had already fallen down. I could only get 5 blocks away when a police officer waved me back and shook his head angrily as I tried to get closer. I parked 6 blocks away and walked towards the fire. 2 blocks away, an officer stopped me and said, "No onlookers. This is an active fire." I replied, "I'm not just watching. A worker of mine used to live in that building and I want to help her." The officer looked at me with doubt. Then I pulled out my phone and showed him a picture from our Christmas party. I pointed to myself and then to Amanda and said, Amanda Carson, age 20. She is my assistant. The policeman called over another officer, a black woman around 40 years old. She looked at me and said, "He says one of his employees lives in that building that is on fire. He wants to check on her." The officer, whom I'll call Sarge, looked at me with some doubt and asked, "Do you have any proof?" I took out my phone and showed her a picture of Amanda from the Christmas party. Sarge then asked, "Is she your girlfriend?" I shook my head no. "Why isn't her husband or boyfriend here with you?" she continued. I replied, "She doesn't have one." "She's cute. Are you gay?" she asked. I shook my head and said, "I'm divorced. My ex-wife was the one with a boyfriend." Sarge chuckled, then sighed and said, "I'm not supposed to let anyone in, but come with me." I followed Sarge to a curb about a block away from the fading fire. There was a long line of people sitting on the curb across the field. I walked along the line until I saw Amanda sitting on the curb, covered in soot and wrapped in a fireman's blanket. She looked shocked and was staring off into space. I knelt down in front of her and said softly, "Amanda?" She turned to look at me. At first she seemed lost. Then relief washed over her and she jumped into my arms, crying. I held her tightly and rubbed her back. I realized she wasn't wearing anything under the blanket. She probably had been asleep when the fire started. I tried to gently pull away so I could give her my shirt, but she wouldn't let go. "Amanda, please let go for a moment so I can put my shirt on you." Despite my attempts, she held on tightly, seeking comfort and safety in me. After a couple of minutes, I finally managed to break free. I took off my shirt and offered it to her. She smiled at me with a new look in her eyes and stood there. Finally, she raised her arms and I draped the blanket over her. It covered her well, although a little bit of her was still showing. She wrapped her arms around me tightly. At first, she trembled, but then she slowly became still. Strangely, she seemed to find comfort in my embrace. I had to gently push her away to get moving. "Sarge," said someone, "you need to get her out of here. We have to clear the area. If you aren't taking her, I'll have to pass her on to the local disaster coordinator for a spot in a shelter." I looked at Amanda and realized I couldn't let that happen. Everyone at my company felt like family to me. When things were tough, Amanda was one of the people who helped me get back on my feet. I replied, "I have a house where she can stay until she finds a place of her own." Sarge said, "Then I need your name, her name, and I need to see your driver's license. Do you understand that I am leaving her in your care?" I nodded. After 10 minutes, she returned. She looked at Amanda, then back at me, shaking her head. "Not her boyfriend? Seriously?" she said, rolling her eyes. I replied, "I have an extra bedroom where she can stay until she gets things sorted out." Sarge nodded and told me, "Get her out of here." Amanda looked at me and said, "There are nails and glass on the sidewalk. I thought it wasn't a big danger, but I didn't want to push her." So I gently picked her up and carried her to my car. She rested her head against my chest, looking for comfort. She had been through a lot, and I wanted to make sure she felt safe. I drove into the garage and let her go ahead of me. As we walked up the steps from the garage to the house, I noticed her shirt riding up, and I saw her figure again. I led her to the bathroom and the spare bedroom next to it, saying, "You can use this shower to clean up." "There are towels in the closet next to you," she said. She smiled, walked over to me, kissed my cheek, and said, "Thank you." She took off her shirt and tried to hand it to me. I found it hard not to stare. She noticed and laughed, saying, "You've already seen me without clothes, silly." I replied, "Maybe you should keep it as a nightshirt." She sniffed the shirt and said, "I usually sleep without clothes, and the shirt smells like smoke." I fumbled my words and said, I need to get some sleep. The bed is ready. Good night." She laughed, but then became serious. "Thanks for helping me. You're the best. Really, thank you." I smiled back and said, "I couldn't do less." She nodded, and I turned to walk to my bedroom. I knew if I stayed, I would just end up looking at her all night. I lay down, feeling tired, and soon I started to drift off to sleep. 20 minutes later, I heard the door open, waking me up suddenly. I asked, "Is something wrong?" Amanda didn't respond. It was dark, and I could just make out her figure as she walked over to the bed. She lifted the covers and quietly got in beside me. I said, "You don't have to do this." She reached out, finding me, and said, "I want to. Earlier, when I stood in front of you, you were supposed to offer to help. Confused, I asked, help with what? She sighed and said, I was trying to show you that I was interested. I hesitated, but... She sighed again, frustrated. I'm trying to get your attention here. Do you think I'm unattractive? I quickly replied, no, you're very attractive. It's just, I'm your boss. She reassured me, I'm fine, and I've thought this through. She gently continued, and I found it hard to resist. It had been months since I had any close moments with someone. She could feel me shaking and close to finishing. She turned over and pulled me closer, saying, I want you to be with me. Let's do this. At that point, I was just going with the flow. I got into position as she said, Joshua, just relax. I'm okay with this. I moved in and it happened quickly. She laughed a little. I said, I'm sorry, it's been so long. I know that was fast. She kissed my cheek and replied, It's fine, I understand. This wasn't just about me. You have me now. I wanted this too. I asked, Really? She laughed and said, Yes, you heard me. Wake me up if you want to try again, but honestly, I'm really tired. After just a quick cleanup, we both drifted off to sleep. I held her close. It felt wonderful to have her next to me, my arms around her. We were fast asleep just moments after lying down. Friday, August 3rd, 2018. I got up and left Amanda peacefully resting in my bed. She was tiny, just 5 feet tall and weighing 105 pounds. I loved seeing her there. A woman was back in my bed, sharing a peaceful moment with me. It wasn't anything more than that. She was there because she wanted to be. That realization hit me suddenly. Oh no, I realized I had already fallen for her and had probably been in love for about a month. I had fallen for my best friend. I walked into the office and Margaret greeted me with a big grin. I asked, Why the smile? Margaret looked worried and said, Please tell me you two spent time together. That was a strange thing to hear from any office manager right away. I shook my head and asked, What do you mean? Margaret replied, Amanda texted me last night saying she was okay after the fire and that you brought her home. She also mentioned she wouldn't come in today, and she wished me luck in winning you over. You didn't turn her down, did you? She's been interested in you for months. I was at a loss for words. Yeah, we... My cheeks turned red and I fumbled over my words. Margaret seemed relieved and said, Oh, thank goodness. I thought you might have turned her away. That would have hurt her feelings. I stuttered. It's not right. Margaret sighed and added, You really don't get it. It's okay. She's an adult and she wanted to be with you. Now she is. She took a deep breath and fixed her eyes on me, gently holding my chin to make sure I was looking into her eyes. Joshua, she cares about you, and she has for a long time. That hit me hard. I cared about her too. Margaret's tone became serious. If you ever make her sad, I raised my hands. I would never hurt anyone. Amanda is amazing. She's kind, smart, and fun to be around. Margaret looked confused for a moment, then broke out into a big grin. You like her! You like her! You like her! Hooray! You two are meant for each other. She bounced up and down with joy like a kid with a new toy. I stammered, But I'm her boss, and it's not. Margaret rolled her eyes. Not appropriate? Come on! A lovely young woman is in love with you. She's everything you could wish for. She's smart and kind. Who cares about what's appropriate? Just listen to me. She likes you. You like her. Forget the past and look forward to a future together. Ugh, why are men so difficult? I sighed and said, I can't take advantage of her feelings. Margaret replied, Take advantage? No way. She wants to be with you. She sighed again, louder this time. You didn't charm her, you know. She's the one who showed interest in you. Finally, I nodded in agreement. Good. It's about time, Margaret said. Let's get to work. She glanced at the whiteboard with the day's agenda and said, You have 3 estimates to finish this morning. At 11:30, I was in downtown Mooresville when I bumped into Sarge just as I was heading into a customer's place to complete my last estimate. I smiled at her. She smiled back and said, Joshua Calvert, nice to see you. I nodded and replied, Nice to see you too. I looked at her name tag, Sergeant Washington. She chuckled and said, It's Shanice. Shanice Washington. She stopped and asked, Did everything go well last night? A grin spread across her face. I hesitated and then said, Yeah, she chuckled and said, "You ended up with her." I felt my cheeks heat up and said, "I told her to stay in the spare room." She laughed and shook her head, asking, "Why would she do that when a nice guy is just next door?" I replied, because it felt right and I didn't want to push anything." She sighed playfully. "You silly, clueless man." "She had a look in her eyes when you brought her home last night. It was clear she likes you. She really wanted to be close to you." I shook my head, saying, "I'm her boss." She laughed again. "Not anymore. Women often lead in relationships, and she's got you now. She's the one calling the shots at home." I responded. It didn't feel right. She continued to laugh. "You just don't get it. She likes you, and she has you now. What's right even mean in this?" "She wanted you, and now she has you." I replied, "But—" She frowned and said, "But there's no but. You are both single now. Well, not for long. You run a business, you're doing well, and you're good-looking. You were there for her when her life was tough. You came late at night to help her and took her home." She laughed a little and said with a smirk, "Sure, no woman would ever want a nice guy who is successful and kind, especially one who shows up late to save the day." I looked at her and sighed. She met my gaze and said, "Just love her and don't let her slip away. I did my homework. Last night I checked your backgrounds when I took your information, and I trust my instincts. She's worth it. And so are you." Suddenly her radio buzzed with a message I couldn't hear, but she said, "I have to go. Take care of her." She chuckled and rolled her eyes at me. "You're such a clueless Boy Scout." My afternoon was spent rewiring an outbuilding and fixing a couple of outlets on a massive deck at some rich guy's place. When I got home, Amanda was in the kitchen, still completely at ease, cooking noodles and grilling steaks just outside on my deck. She didn't seem to care that someone might see her, even though it was unlikely but still possible. We sat down for dinner, and Amanda smiled at me with a knowing look. I finally gathered the courage to ask, "What happened last night?" She paused, then replied carefully, "My apartment burned down." I asked if there was anything else. She giggled and said, "I got tired of waiting for you to make a move, so I took the lead. Honestly, I had to do something to get your attention. You didn't react to my crop top or when I played soccer without a shirt. You saw me at the massage and the pool, and still, nothing. You were supposed to make a move on me in the hot tub at the massage place. I would have gone along with it, you know? I appreciate that you respect me, but honestly, I felt unsure because you didn't make any moves. I did a fun karaoke while I was topless. I made sure you noticed when I changed for the water park. Margaret came up with that idea. I thought it would be funny for us to be together at that massage I won. I didn't really win anything. Everyone helped pay for it. That idea was Hank's. I didn't plan for last night. I overslept, and the fire alarm went off an hour after I fell asleep. But when you were there with me by the fire, holding me, I didn't want to let go. Being in your arms felt like my safe place. It was pure happiness being with you, and I didn't care about anything else because I loved being close to you. Being close to you feels so warm and comforting. I'm really annoyed with you and that policewoman trying to pull me away. I could have stayed in your arms all night, and honestly, I don't care who sees. I just wanted to stay like that forever. You know, you can make someone feel unsure of themselves. If I didn't know you were such a goody two-shoes, I might have felt less confident. I'm not shy about things, so that's why I agreed so easily. I thought maybe if you saw me, you would want to make a move, but you stayed the nice guy you are. I really wanted you to notice me more. So I decided to just come over and be bold with you. I was hoping that seeing me like this would finally make you act. I asked, "You wanted me all along?" She rolled her eyes and replied, "Of course. I came over and wanted to be close to you. I really wanted us to be together. I really liked it, though." She laughed and said, "I claimed you when you started your divorce. Just ask Margaret." I replied, "I'm your boss." She shrugged and said, "I claimed you, and now you belong to me." I asked, "Don't you mean you're with me?" She laughed and answered, "Oh no, you belong to me, just like I belong to you. A relationship is a full exchange. It's not real until you give yourself fully to the other person because you want to. I'm yours now." I stammered, but I shouldn't take advantage of that. She shrugged and rolled her eyes. "Lots of bosses date their employees, and just so you know, I chose this and really wanted to be with you. It was great last night. Don't tell me you didn't feel anything. I definitely did. A lot." I paused for a moment to think, and then I realized something amazing. She was my future. All of my future. She was my closest friend, and I cared for her deeply. She was the perfect match for me. We had been best friends for several months and had just started to explore a deeper connection. I really felt a bond with her. Friendship and romance were both important parts of a strong relationship. With a deep breath, I said, "I'm in love with you." "Gah!" she squealed with happiness. "I love you too, Joshua." I moved closer and wrapped my arms around her. She loved me back. How had she managed to make me feel this way? Holding her felt wonderful. It was a warm and peaceful feeling, as if she belonged there. She relaxed in my embrace and sighed contentedly. This was something very special, different from my time with Brittany. I had cared for Brittany a lot, but being with Amanda felt more satisfying in a way I had never experienced before. Holding Amanda brought me a deep sense of comfort. I then asked, "So, let's make this official. Would you like to be my girlfriend?" "Yay!" she exclaimed again. "Yes!" I asked. "What should we do now?" She replied, "Well, I guess I should move in. But honestly, I don't have much to bring. I have some money in the bank and my car. I feel kind of like your bare girlfriend with nothing. I don't have many clothes. Maybe I'll just stay that way for a bit. I enjoy being comfortable at home. I often just relax in my pajamas, eat, watch TV, and sleep. It feels nice." I hugged her and she snuggled closer. She asked, "Is something wrong?" I said, I'm just so happy." She laughed and asked, "What is it?" I hesitated a bit and said, "What if—" She sighed and replied, "Oh, I see." She looked at me with a serious expression and said, "Joshua, I've never cheated and I never will. I know Brittany hurt you, but I need you to open your heart to me completely." She looked at me with a deep sincerity and promised, "I swear." She placed my hand on her. "This is yours now, completely and willingly. Just like you belong to me. I won't even kiss another man. I'm loyal. Not even someone like Marc Lavaliere could tempt me, and he's gone now. But even if he were still here, I wouldn't stray. I promise I will not cheat." She held my gaze, and I believed her. I hugged her, holding her close. She whispered, "You're only the second man I've ever been close with." We had dinner, and then she smiled, nodding towards the bedroom. This time was gentle, slow, and full of connection. We spent the weekend together, growing closer, sometimes quickly, but mostly taking our time. She cherished the moments when we were together, fully connected. She's quite the bold person, not shy at all. One time she answered the door completely without any clothes on when the pizza guy came, and another time for the delivery from La Hacienda. Saturday, August 11th, 2018. That night, we were very close for hours. "You know what makes a man feel like he can do anything?" Amanda would say to me every time we embraced. "You feel so wonderful." She looked up at me with such a kind and loving expression as we enjoyed our time together. After we finally finished, she laughed and I asked, "What's on your mind?" She said, "I have a confession. I've had feelings for you since before. I just respected your relationship until your ex let you down. Then I started thinking about how to win your heart. When that fire happened, I saw my chance to move things forward." Margaret and Hank were having a hard time figuring it out too. I asked, "Margaret and Hank?" She nodded and said, "They both helped me plan from the start. Everyone at J. Calvert Electric cares about you. That's right. 7 people care about you. I care about you as my special person, and the others feel like family. You are important to me, and I'm the only one who gets to be close to you like this. We all appreciate what you do for us." I said, "I'm confused." She replied, "You make our lives better and treat everyone kindly. That's why people stay with us for so long. That's why everyone came over the night your ex-wife left with that guy. Mondays feel easier because of you. Do you ever wonder why the boss gets invited to join the team for sports? It's because you treat us all like family. That's a big reason why I care about you. You're a wonderful person who leads with kindness, not just as a boss. You're always so kind and respectful. You've been there for me when it mattered, and I've noticed you do the same for everyone." I smiled and realized that during the months since my divorce, Amanda, Hank, Margaret, and others had supported me, helping me feel alive again. I saw now that Amanda was stepping up more as the others began to step back. It felt like a beautiful plan filled with care. Saturday, August 25th, 2018. It happened in a lovely, unexpected way. That morning, we were relaxed and talking softly after spending time together. It had been a while since the last moment of closeness, and we were simply enjoying each other's company. She reached over and gently touched my cheek. Her hand felt so gentle and warm. "Joshua," she said, "I love you so much." I smiled and gently touched her cheek, just like she had done to me before. "I could look into your eyes forever." She tightened up for a moment, then smiled back and gave a tiny nod. I knew what I had to do. I felt like I could see our future together, with her looking back at me filled with love years from now. I just knew it. I smiled and asked, "Amanda, would you do me the great honor of being my wife?" She nodded and then hugged me tightly, surprising me with her strength. "Yes, I'm always yours, Joshua, yes." I sat up and pulled her close again. "I guess I owe you a ring." She sighed happily. "I only need you." I laughed lightly. "Let me explain. Please get up and get dressed. As much as I like seeing you this way, I would rather you not get in trouble." "We are going ring shopping," I said. She nodded without arguing, and in just 15 minutes we were on our way. We visited several stores and finally stopped at a small shop run by a nice couple. She got to design her own ring. She loves colorful stones and picked a half-carat diamond, along with 2 little sapphire hearts and 2 small ruby hearts. The ring would be ready in 2 weeks, and it was exactly what she wanted. To celebrate, we had dinner with my work friends. Margaret was very emotional and cried through the meal. Hank kept giving me looks that felt like he thought he was better than me. What a jerk. On Saturday, September 10th, 2018, Amanda said she didn't want a big wedding. I knew that was unusual. Amanda wore a simple white sundress with flowers on it, and I had on my work pants and a polo shirt with our company logo. We stood together in front of the parts counter at my workplace, facing each other. Javier's uncle was next to us. He is a pastor for a small church. The gathering was similar to the night we had dinner at the Outback Steakhouse after my divorce. There were my parents, my brother, and Amanda's sister. Margaret stood by my side as my best man, and Amanda's sister was the maid of honor. Hank walked Amanda down the aisle in the warehouse. The wedding itself was quick. We exchanged our vows and became a married couple. We had the reception at the same Outback Steakhouse. I was surprised when 3 more people arrived for the reception. Herb, who had worked for me for less than a year, came with 2 other people. I recognized one of them. He was the man who had warned me about problems I might have with Brittany. I looked at him and said, "You?" He smiled back and introduced himself. "Tom Halver. This is my wife, Alicia." I glanced at the woman who seemed somewhat familiar. Herb added, "Alicia is my daughter and Tom is my son-in-law." I asked, "What? How?" Alicia smiled. "I met you once when I dropped my dad off at your Christmas party. He had car trouble. I talked to your wife for a bit. At that time, I didn't have a job, and your wife mentioned there were admin openings. She didn't help much, but she did tell me where to look. After a few weeks, I applied and got a job with one of the junior partners. I said, okay, and..." She continued, "I am very thankful for what you did for my dad. He lost his job right before he turned 66 and had money issues. You gave him a job that allowed him to retire with respect, and I will always be grateful for that. I noticed things were tough for your wife, too. Everyone in the building knew. I asked my husband to send a message to you. My dad asked Margaret where you were the day you got the note. He didn't say why, just that it was personal and important. Margaret mentioned where you were doing that estimate, so my husband knew your location. I smiled at everyone. Thank you. This helped me a lot during a tough time. I was able to prevent things that could have hurt me." Herb replied, "Then it worked just as we planned." I nodded in agreement. Herb added, "You never know when a good deed for someone else might come back to help you. Kindness can go both ways." The reception was quiet, and everyone seemed tired. It was a small gathering that ended by 9:30. That evening, Amanda and I shared a tender moment, both of us feeling worn out. I held her close, my arms wrapped around her, a comforting moment I hope to have forever. The next day, we set off for England and started walking the first 100 miles of the Southwest Coast Path. Just like me, Amanda loves to hike. I am married to my best friend. Saturday, November 10th, 2018. I sat with Amanda at our 2-month anniversary dinner, feeling great at a place called Grenouille Heureuse, which means happy frog in French. The owner has a funny sense of humor. It was an upscale French restaurant, and Amanda insisted on paying for our meal. We combined our money, so it wasn't exactly true, but that didn't matter to us. Yes, some might say mixing our finances is silly. Yes, I insist on it. My marriage is all about sharing, and I'm fully committed. I felt really happy again. How did this happen? Amanda wore a lovely blue dress that caught my eye. She enjoyed dressing up and stayed confident in herself. While we both knew her dress showed a little too much at times, I couldn't help but appreciate how happy she looked. Seriously, though, how did I end up here, feeling so good again? I had promised myself I would stay away from women and relationships after my ex, Britt, really hurt me. But here I was, feeling happy with my wife, Amanda. That happiness was knocked away when I saw Brittany walk in with William DeBaugh, who everyone called Billy. My ex looked stunning in a fancy dress, and I could feel myself tense up. We were sitting on one side of the room, and they were on the other side, far enough that they couldn't see us. Amanda noticed and said, "That's your ex and Billy." I just nodded. Amanda sighed and said, "I'm sorry." I let out a deep breath and tried to push those feelings down. It was hard to forget the past. But then I remembered how amazing Amanda was. She was better than anyone I had known. She was incredible, far better than the rest. I smiled and shrugged, then said, "It still hurts a little, but you are better in so many ways." She stood up, smiled at me, and gave my cheek a quick kiss. Then she said, "I need to use the restroom." She went to the bathroom, and it took longer than I thought it would. I figured, maybe she just needs to take her time. Even the best people have to deal with that. I hoped it wasn't like the moment I had earlier when I felt so uncomfortable. That would be awkward. Amanda returned and sat down, but she kept looking at the door. It was strange, but I decided not to worry about it. We had finished our dinner and were waiting for the bill when something unexpected happened. A woman in her late 50s, who looked to weigh around 200 pounds, walked in. She yelled, "William!" When she spotted Billy Douchebag with my ex, she stomped across the room towards him. Some people were quick to pull out their phones and start recording. She was wearing a gray-green pantsuit and looked a bit like an angry lizard. She walked in a way that made it kind of hard to ignore. "Stomp, stomp, stomp," Amanda said. "Just watch." She didn't need to. I was already watching. William started to get up, but then she stepped forward and, "Cheating jerk! Smack, 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 smack!" He tried to protect his face, but his stomach was wide open. Punch to the stomach! Another punch! He reached down to cover his stomach. Smack, smack, smack! I found this amusing. It felt like a live comedy show. No serious harm, though. What a shame. He tried to guard both his stomach and face when suddenly a big purse swung at him, knocking him backward into a chair. "Cheating jerk!" echoed as he hit the floor and seemed knocked out. The woman didn't stop even when her husband was down. She grabbed an expensive bottle of wine and poured it all over Brittany's head. Then, with a good swing of her large purse, she knocked Brittany to the floor and shouted, "You home wrecker! Looks like he bought you that dress!" An interesting fact, chiffon is not the toughest fabric around. The lizard woman grabbed the dress and pulled hard. Brittany couldn't hold on, and the dress ripped off easily. Now she was left in her undergarments and heels. It was clear that Brittany had an attractive figure. I'm not sure why some people seem to want to take each other's clothes off during a fight, but this was quite the spectacle. Brittany tried to tear the lizard woman's gray-green dress, but the lizard woman was much stronger and even angrier. Soon, Brittany's undergarments were gone and she was left with just her shoes. At this point, many onlookers had their phones out recording the scene. Brittany rolled over and tried to push herself up to escape. The lizard woman came over and pushed Brittany down. Then she sat on top of her and began acting strangely. Wow, how cool! Rude! Brittany felt a series of hits, but usually I wasn't a fan of this kind of behavior. This time felt different. It took the owner of Grenouille Heureuse, the maitre, and 2 cooks to pull the lizard woman off Brittany, whose face showed clear signs of discomfort. As they separated her from Brittany, the owner looked at the chaos and decided it was time to close the restaurant. Everyone's dinner was on the house. As we walked out, Amanda turned to me and said, "This is my gift to you for our 2-month anniversary. I found Billy's wife on LinkedIn and made a call. Did you like your present?" I stepped outside and looked at my wonderful wife, saying, "I love you." She smiled back and replied, "I'm yours forever." At that moment, I felt happy, knowing I could move on with my life. Amanda was a wonderful woman who brought joy and excitement to my life. Some days I felt so overwhelmed by her energy that I struggled to keep up. But life was good. I prefer enjoying life with all its ups and downs, rather than thinking about my ex and her embarrassing moments online. One time in the car, Amanda playfully took off her dress without a second thought. She was always so confident, and I loved that about her. When we got home, she took my hand and led me straight to the bedroom. She whispered her favorite way to express our love: two become one. We both wanted each other so much, and it felt amazing. As she lay down, we shared sweet kisses. I paused and told her, "I love you." She looked at me with love in her eyes and replied, "I love you too." We kissed deeply, promising our love to each other. We stayed close for a long time, simply enjoying being together. It wasn't just about the ending, it was about the connection we shared along the way. It was about Joshua and Amanda as one. Wednesday, November 14th, 2018. The next Wednesday, Amanda came to work. She walked into my office and turned on the radio to 104.9, tuning into the Warren Weasel and Mike Tubbs show. I sighed because I wasn't a big fan of their show, but I wanted to support my wife, so I thought, I'll give it a chance. A few minutes later, "Hey, Warren?" "Yes, Mike. Do you want to hear a funny story?" "Of course I do," Mike continued. "We have a video on our website that is not suitable for work. For those at work, our town's famous lawyer, Warren DeBaugh, took his partner out to a fancy dinner." Warren laughed. "This is great," Mike chuckled back. "It really is." His wife caught them at dinner and got very angry. She then confronted William and wasn't gentle with him. Warren laughed loudly. Mike continued, "After that, his wife dealt with the other woman in a firm way." "Anyway," Warren encouraged him, "so what do we do now?" Mike said, "We really need to take action. We have to revoke William's rights as a man for letting a woman overpower him." Warren joked, "Hey, everyone over 18, go to our webcast page and click the link. As a fun twist, the other woman won't be wearing anything and she's very attractive." Amanda kissed my cheek and said, "I made a call yesterday when I found out about the video. Mike and Warren know me from the soccer game and helped me out." I looked at my wife and smiled. Amanda simply said, "I'm here for you. Hope you like my little surprise." That afternoon, they dressed their intern, Fat Freddy, as a process server and sent him into William's office. It was pretty normal for servers to come in and ask for the lawyers. Honestly, I was surprised when William came out, but he did. Freddy asked, "William DeBaugh?" William replied, "Yes." William reached out his hand, expecting an envelope or some papers. Freddy said without any humor, "We know about the problem at the restaurant where you had a conflict with your wife." William looked angry but seemed to be unsure of where this was going. Freddy continued, "I'm here to take your pride away for getting defeated by a girl." William turned red with annoyance. "Leave now, or I will call the police to remove you." Even the receptionist smiled a little as Freddy turned around and walked out. Freddy recorded the whole thing. His belt buckle had a small camera attached. My Amanda, the best wife ever. Warren Weasel and Mike Tubbs of the Troubles. Yeah, life is full of surprises. After our wedding party, I found out my big brother spent the night with his future wife. Can you believe it? Yep, Amanda's sister. I had the honor of standing by my brother at his wedding to Anna the next July. Anna is a lot like her sister and somehow managed to turn my wild brother into a loving husband and soon-to-be dad. Their love story? It's quite amusing, but that's a tale for another time. Yes, Mark Lavaliere is part of George Armstrong's life. Coming up with creative ways for him to face challenges is just fun. There are little hints to many other stories and themes in there, too. Hey, listeners! If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.